Alright, I'm back into this build now. I'm reassembling the axles. The reason why I took these apart is I noticed that I had a little bit of slipping when I was into some tight spots. And the main issue, or the thing that I think is the issue, is if you look at this thing right here, it has some splines on the end that holds this thing on right here. I've already done it on this one as well. I just slimmed the end caps off so I could put a little bit of JB weld in there to make this solid, because this thing can slip on this piece of metal. It's just sitting on here with a little bit of roughed up edges, and really that's not holding anything on. So I just popped those little ends off. I rolled it in the JB weld a little bit, and I'm just going to use some pressure and push that piece back on. I noticed these axle covers, or these axles themselves, they were full of rust residue from running in water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this cheap waterproof grease, and I'm going to fill the differentials up with it. That way I don't have an issue. It protects it. It shouldn't rust anymore with that. And also it'll loosen up the drivetrain a little bit as well. So I just use that stick right there to go ahead and lay the grease down inside this channel right here, so you can see it's filled up, and when I squeeze it together it should fill it right on up. Alright, it's not quite overflowing, but you can see it's coming out of the axle end of the housing. I got it around this cup as well to free that up. But I'm going to go ahead and put the cover back on. I got some different covers for it. Right here, I'm going to go ahead and put these silver covers on it instead, and then go ahead and pack at both cover ends full of grease as well. Alright, I'm preparing to install the servo linkage right here. I went ahead and installed a stud right there, a long stud. I'm going to use what I need to out of it and clip the rest of it. And this is the original linkage here. I used a little bit of a washer to give it a little bit more freedom of movement. It had a little bit of issues moving around when it got dirty or anything. And this is the new linkage here. It's metal. It's just like the old stuff. It's just metal, and it has ball ends on it so it can move a little bit more freely. And on the stock truck, they tell you to put the linkage on the bottom of this thing right here, on the bottom where that screw head is coming through. And I'll show you. Here I have it set up on this truck. You can see this is the regular ride height, and pretty much the lowest point across the front is this steering linkage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over to this top side and attach it to this top side, and then attach my servo linkage directly on top of that. So I'm going to stack it. Alright, I used the stock screw on this side, and I went ahead and used the long bolt like I was showing on this side. I'm going to stack the other one right on top of that. And there it is, assembled, fully functional. And that kind of gets rid of the bump steer when the suspension travels. You can see how my fingers don't move. When the suspension travels, it does not affect the steering. And that works out pretty good, and it increases the ground clearance in front of the pumpkin. Now we're ready to replace this plastic truss. We got these metal ones here, and I'm going to go ahead and attach these to the axle. I'm putting my spacers in here as well, and this is the time to do it. They go right underneath this bracket, and what it does is it just separates the bracket from the axle just a little bit, and the suspension attaches to this, so really it's nothing to do with the suspension. It just drops the axles down a little bit lower and gives it that little bit more of a lift. Alright, you can see my spacers back under there. That is very time consuming. It's very hard to hold those little spacers in place and hold the axles and hold the truss and get those little screws to line up into those little tiny holes. But there she is, fully assembled, and it is quite a bit of weight here. I'm going to let it clunk on the table. There's a lot going on there. Alright, I've got both axles assembled here with all the metal pieces that I was trying to get on them. And I've got to do some adjustments as I install these onto the links, so I'm going to go ahead and start tinkering with that. It's going to take me a minute to get the adjustments right. So this build is slowly coming along. There's a lot of intricacies when you're doing custom work like this. This is more like a puzzle than RC truck. With some people's perspective, it's closer to a legitimate truck right now with all this metal stuff. But with the way these trucks come, man, it's more of a model toy. Some people might get upset that I say that because they're like really die-hard fans about this. I really like the trucks. I really like how they're set up, the way they look and everything. The only thing that I can say is that out of the box, you just really need to expect a lot less than I was expecting. I was expecting a very light trail truck. Maybe I could run over some dirt hills and some sticks or something, but this is more for show than anything originally. And that's just my opinion. I mean, obviously you can build it into anything you want and do more with it, but if you're looking for a RC out of the box, this probably isn't what I would go for. You know, you're gonna have to put a lot of work into it to make it really, really reliable. I'm also greasing this gear casing. I'm gonna go around the perimeter just to kind of create a seal, kind of a liquid grease seal, so the water doesn't get in here. There's a screw down inside of there. You can't really see it because of the shadow, but this right screw is rusted. So that shows me that there was a little bit of water getting inside of here, and there's no gasket really, so obviously there's nothing to stop it. So this waterproof grease, if you just rub it around the perimeter, I did it on the gear casing inside the truck already, and I'm just going to do it to this, so where it meets together, it will just create kind of a seal, a waterproof seal. So that's generally what you want to do. I'm not going to fill it so it's squeezing out the edges. I don't want it completely filled. I just want everything coated, and it pretty much is all the way full. I went ahead and soldered my motor connectors on there. I almost completely forgot about that, but I went ahead and got them on there just in time so I can go ahead and start assembling this front axle. I'm going to go ahead and start putting the bracketry together and everything. And I wanted to point out while this is like this so you can see it really well, I can take and grab these turnbuckle links and spin this either direction, because they're reverse thread on one side and regular thread on the other, so they're adjustable. So I can literally extend this down and around and adjust the angle of the axle itself. I can turn this so it doesn't have so much of a pitch on this drive shaft. I can turn it, you know, straight back if I really wanted to. I could turn it, you know, to pitch the axle to so it's straight up and down so it looks more stock. I can do anything I want to. They're completely adjustable, and there's plenty of movement, so I can do what I need to with that. So it's really nice to have that. The main thing I was doing this for is I wanted metal ball-in links so I can have a little bit more flexibility, and this truck is just so light that it just isn't very capable. I think the weight is going to help it a lot, so all of this weight is just really the idea. Alright, I am now pretty much done with the complicated part of this assembly. We're down to just throwing the body on and putting the ESC inside the body and the battery and whatnot. The only issue I'm going to have from here on out is probably trying to fit this enormous battery in here. And this is my idea for where to put the battery. This is about the only place it will fit. And that's a 3-cell. Not too shabby. It's a 2200 milliamp hour HPB power. Let's check it out. HPB power, 3-cell. Alright, getting that battery in there became an issue I was not quite expecting. I ended up doing a lot of trimming, including taking out the bell housing and everything. You can see the battery's down in there low, and that's because I trimmed that tray in there completely flat so that battery sits in between the widest part of the door panel. See how it swells? It just barely fits. I mean, it's like it was made to be. No, it's not the greatest light right here, but you can kind of see the end of the batteries here, so that leaves all this room back here. I'm hoping the ESC will fit up under that little area right there. Alright, this whole time I haven't disassembled this part simply because I want to keep the lighting system intact, because I already redid it with brand new LEDs, my own LED lights. And you can see I've got my wires all running here real nice. Got my motor wires underneath right there. Running to my motor. I already checked the direction of the drive. I already had it running. I checked the lights, the drive, everything works. I checked it with my 2S Florion back there. And I've got the cable running back here, which I can just open up the toolbox, which I painted silver. I just like the silver toolbox. Put that back there and close the lid. It's a little bit tight with that ESC in there, but it will close. I'll have to wiggle that maybe a little bit. And the battery is going to sit a little bit catty-cornered, kind of at an angle, to kind of sit with this ESC in there like that. But I test fitted it, and there's just enough room for it to kind of sit in here. The steering wheel is like right in here, so it just, well, right about in here, the steering wheel. So it gives it just enough room in there, and it's about up against the dash, and you can see my trimming a little bit better in there. But she's looking pretty good. It's a little bit faster so far, but I haven't put the 3S on it. But that battery back there, it's so big, it runs almost like a 3S. It's a 7.4 volt, 5200 milliamp hour. After many hours of hard work, we are finally assembled. I've got the charger plug hanging out the window so you can tell it's really a 3S in there. Got my wheel adapters ready to go on there. You can see it's about the same height as a stock truck without the tires on it. Alright, I am officially done with this build. Here's a little bit of a comparison with the two together. I'm running the stock servo in this truck, but in this truck over here I did upgrade the servo because I imagined that it would need a little bit more torque. And this is the servo that I'm running if you want to pick one up. I picked it up for about, I think it was $4 or $5 on eBay. I might be able to share the link. Here's the part number on the back. It's a very strong servo, metal geared. It does not come with the metal servo horn, but it's got plenty of power. It snatches them tires back and forth, no problem. Hopefully I don't have to take this truck apart again. I'm going to go ahead and do a run-in video later down the road I started to try to drive it, but these output shafts on these transmissions, I don't know why they do it, but they leave them completely smooth. There's no flat spots on it. So they do it on the original transmission as well, and it needs to have a flat spot or some sort of way to lock it in. So what I did is I put a tiny dab of JB Weld on there. I know I use it for everything, but I just put a tiny dab on there, not to make it permanent, just to make it hold on there just long enough so you can drive it. If I need to, I can apply some pressure and pop it off. But if you like this video, please give it a like. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I replied to all my comments. If you want any questions about the build, these are 75mm shocks, 86mm tires. I got the copper gear, or brass gear actually, axles. I have the plastic outputs on the end of the axles because I got the cheaper one. They have a metal one available. This is a 370 motor with a single speed upgrade. They have a 2-speed. I don't like the 2-speed because it comes with plastic gears. I'm more about metal, obviously. This one also has the metal links with the brass ends and the metal drive shafts, stock drivetrain and that. And we're going to compare the two. Obviously this has much more lift and bite in the tires, but this thing ought to be a lot faster now. That is pumping out 3-cell in there now, huge massive battery. It's going to be a beast of a truck, and I had the wheel speed in a video earlier, so you can know it's going to be moving pretty good. So please subscribe, hit me up. Thanks for watching.